After sports, well, we're pleased to bring you my blunt thoughts for today, Ghana 4. My name is Benjamin Akakpo, and you know how I do it. The title for today's blunt thoughts, and stay with me, stay with me. I want you to follow this critically and share widely, because these are issues all of us need to talk about. Ghana's Chinese albatross, a flailing assault on corruption, and more fleeing health workers. The true picture. Ghana's Chinese albatross, a flailing assault on corruption, and more fleeing health workers. The true picture. Let me premise I don't want to say diatribe, but let me premise what I'm going to say this morning on this. If we think as a people, this morning I was calling for the Aglo people from way back and how ferociously they held those in leadership to account. I'm calling on them to do so today, and not just today, with every other party that comes. If we somehow think that we can pray our way to development, wallahi, we are the worst jokers alive. If we think we can pray, and that prayers alone will lead to development without the hard work, without holding our leaders accountable, without putting on our thinking caps, without taking off our tainted and tinted political lenses, we are jokers. I'm saying that for a fact. Now, just note, before I go to the board, Norway has a sovereign fund from its oil that has been putting together since the 90s, thereabouts. Do you know how much is in that kitty? $1.4 trillion. Even in recent times, in recent days, there was a bit of a slump, but $1.4 trillion. Can you imagine that? We have a projection that, God willing, in 2057, by the time Ghana is 100 years old, if we make it there, if it is not just left with G and the Hana gone, and if we still have Ghana intact, by 2057, we would have a nominal GDP, and mind you, this is nominal GDP, so put it in the proper context, of $3.4 trillion. But as of today, in some countries' sovereign fund, for future generations, they have $1.4 trillion in that kitty, lying there, kule. How do we compete with them? How will our children and our grandchildren in 2057 compete with the likes of those children from Norway? That is how we ought to think. We are so far behind, it is not even funny. And yet when you say anything, oh, it is political. Oh, it is this. Well, we day inside. But today, like I said, I'm going to be reflecting on three crucial areas. Our Chinese albatross, so to speak. No offense to the Chinese. I'm talking about our debt overhang. We'll look at the work of the special prosecutor and whether we're actually benefiting in any way. And we'll also contemplate our health workers who are jackpying every day. Yesterday, I spoke to someone a nurse, male nurse. He wants to go to Canada. But let's get to the slides now. If you look at Ghana's indebtedness, you look at those countries in Africa heavily indebted to China. The country that ranks tops is Ghana. Niger with 2.7 billion, 3.1 billion to Senegal, Chad 3.2 billion, Zambia 4.6, Sudan 7.9, 11.4 billion, Mozambique, Democratic Republic of the Congo 12.1, Tanzania 12.6, Ethiopia 14.8, Guinea 21.9, Ghana 31.1. Almost a combination of this and that. You would get what? About 20, 34, 35, that's about 36.7 billion, okay? Almost those figures put together. But, to be fair, this 31.1 billion you're seeing here is not currently what we owe them. It is what we have accrued in debt over time to the Chinese since 2004. 31.1 billion. We've paid some of our debt, the recent one, so now, as of now, we owe them about $1.9 billion. That's our debt exposure to the Chinese. That's the picture. We are tops in Africa. But even while we are tops, if we had done so much with it, we wouldn't complain, right? The question is, having borrowed 31.1 billion from the Chinese, what do we have to show? Yeah, they are bobra, and I say I'm far mobra. And no, any asemano. Let's go to the next slide. Now, staying on this right before I get to the OSP bit, because the bit about corruption also feeds into how we bleed as a country. We've been told by the finance minister himself we lose anything from 4 billion to about 6 billion every year. And I'm talking in dollars, not cedis. Then, in terms of our external debt restructuring, you hear the likes of Dr. Theo Echampong saying, China will always negotiate hard. Ghana must accept it. Yeah. They can choose to bite you whichever way they like because you've been irresponsible. You've borrowed without, any guards, any safeguards. You've borrowed wantonly. And when you do that, you expend it wantonly. And then before you realize, it's time for payback. And you're on the ropes. I don't want to get into Chinese and pumping money into certain economies, knowing very well that sometimes these people cannot pay. That's a totally different discussion. But it's up to us. And like Dr. Theo Echampong has said, let's go back to the next slide, please, before I move to this one. Like Dr. Theo Echampong has said, China will always negotiate hard. They'll negotiate in their interest. You'll try and negotiate in your interest, but do beggars have a choice? If wishes were horses, like the saying goes, beggars would ride. And if beggars don't ride, it's because they don't have that choice. So that's on our economy and our exposure to the Chinese, even as we contemplate the second tranche of money from the IMF and our external debt. Now let's go on to the OSP. The branding, how the OSP and my friend Kissie Jabeng brands himself and his entity is this. The OSP is the gold standard and flagship specialized independent anti-corruption state agency in Ghana. Or are they? Let's go to the next slide. Now, if you look at some of the assessments that have been given, before I even talk about the real work of the OSP, the Speaker's comments on the OSP's ineffectiveness in recent times. As for the law you passed on the establishment of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, I did tell you that it was an act in futility. You were not going to achieve anything, but you went ahead and passed it. I'll ask you, what do you think? Have we achieved our goals? There are different views on this. Let's go to the next slide. And we'll be getting some of those different perspectives. But for the OSP himself, the Special Prosecutor, not the OSP, the Special Prosecutor and what he's been saying, he says the courts are exhibiting disregard for the office's powers and that the office operates without an establishment or established budget. I know the budget has risen over time, yes, but is there some sanity to it, establishment to it? That's the question. And when do you even get funds to do the work? If you're getting funds midway through the year or far along the year, how do you execute your plan? Next slide. You look at the appointment dates for our two special prosecutors. January 2018 for Martin Amidu, August 2021 after he had resigned for Kissie Jabeng. Exit date November 2020. Kissie Jabeng is still soldiering on. But let's find out more from the tail of the tape. Let's get into our next slide now. In terms of assessing the performance of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, let's look at Ghana's performance when it comes to the CPI, Corruption Perception Index. In 2012, we scored 45. Same in 2013, thereabouts. 2014, 46. So I think in 2012 it was a bit lower, this figure. But 2013, 45. 2014, our highest, 46. Then there's also another figure of 47 at a point. And then in 2016, it dwindles to 43. Then 2017, we hit rock bottom. At least as far as this scale is concerned, 40. But within this period that we've had, when you see the lines, the broken lines, we've had the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Mind you, this is January 2018. 41, 41, 43, 43, 43. That's the latest in 2022, which is still less than all the others we've scored up to 2015, and only matching what we saw in 2016. So you then ask yourself, with this office and with the millions we have spent, hundreds of millions in fact, where are the results? Next slide. Then you look at the annual allocations to the OSP, and this is where it gets a bit interesting because yes, no, they don't get their funds on time and all of that, but look at how much we're expending in there. Is it worth it? If we pushed this into maybe health or something, would it be better used? Because when you're looking at anything, especially expenditure, you're looking at quality, time, value, and all of that, but you're also looking at how effective and efficient your resources are being used if you're thinking like an economist. Now in 2018, we expended 3.79 billion, a million, I beg your pardon, 3.79 million. In 2019, it shot up by about 60 times, 180.16 million. Then it fell a bit to 138.15 in 2020, 124.1 in 2021, that figure in 2022, this 129 in 2023, and in 2024, we have a projection of 149 million. Add all of these, 100, 100, 100, that's 300, 400, 500. You add all of those, you are looking at upwards of 600, 700. This is about 800. You spent over 800 million Ghana cedis, so to speak, on this office, almost $1 billion Ghana cedis. I ask you, what do we have to show? Are we satisfied with what is being done? But let's get down to it further and note what has been done and what has not, and whether we are happy. Let's go to the next slide. Before we get there, some of the perspectives on this, you would have Inusa Hussaini say it would not be in the interest of any party to scrap the OSP despite no successful prosecutions. Kofi Bento says the OSP will be effective over time. Only God knows when exactly. And I'm not saying Kisi Ejabeng himself is not doing well. I'm saying the office and everything else that is happening is hobbling whatever work he may want to do. And Martin Amidu, the current OSP, has no respect for the Constitution. Let's go to the next slide. But then in the next two slides, I want us to assess what has been done and whether we can tout anything or boast of anything because we have an OSP. Look at the ambulance case involving Mahama Yariga and 6 others. Number of months, quite a number of them. Defendants acquitted and discharged. Nothing to show. Mahama Yariga's tax evasion issue, 52 months. Entry of nolle prosequi quashed the prosecution. It ended there. Bank of Ghana banking sector cleanup, ongoing investigation. Cecilia Dapa, 5 months and counting. Docket to be assigned to a new judge. Charles Edubuahin, 12 months. Concluded and all persons acquitted. Customs Division of the GRA, I'm talking about the LaBianca case, 15 months, OSP rejected the court's decision. Let's go to the next slide. There's more there. Illegal mining, including Akonta mining. Akonta mining. Yeah. Chairman Woon to me. Ongoing investigation. Sir John's estate on appeal. Vote buying. 1 month, 6 persons wanted, and we brought you details of that, Seshe Dumasi and other places. Alex Safo Kantanka, awaiting court's decision in January 2024. We got some scoop on that recently. Ajanim Boateng Ajay, case ongoing in court. Sumaila Abdulrahman and 3 others. Case adjourned to February 2024 for mention. Look at all of this. So then, with the close to 1 billion we've expended, Yakoye, Anayabai, what are the gains? What can we show? That's the question. If I came to work and I did not do anything, I had nothing to show at the end of the day, do you think I would be here? But with that same mindset, why can't we approach our national life in that way, governance in that way? With all the resources being expended, what can we beat our chests and show for? Unless we start thinking like that, we're not going anywhere as a country. Now let's go into the last subject. Ghana, exodus of health workers. We've spoken about medical doctors. We've spoken about nurses especially, who have been leaving in droves. Last year, first quarter, 3,000 left. The trend has continued. The Ghana Health Service has waded into it. So many entities. We're losing them by the droves. Some say, oh, there will always be nurses. Da obe kwa hospital, I want your nurse, you know. But anesthetists, crucial, especially when surgery is being conducted. No one wants to talk about them. Over 30% of anesthetists have left Ghana in 2023. 30%. 3 out of 10. Gone. Look at them. Let me give you the breakdown. You look at some of the numbers. Please, let's go to the next slide. Now, the usual, factors. Why are they going? Same factors, no solution. Lack of career progression. Poor conditions of service. Wrongful placement on the single spine salary scale. And a lack of a scheme of service. And we expect them to stay because of patriotism. Yeah, well, they have to eat, right? I'm not saying we shouldn't be patriotic, but we have basic needs. And every human being will go for those first. And in our last slide, you would notice, looking at the numbers, scary? You tell me. There are about 1,200 certified, registered anesthetists, according to the CRA in Ghana, the Ghana Association of Certified Registered Anesthetists. Now, this translates to a ratio of 26,650 Ghanaians to 1 CRA, or Certified Registered Anesthetist. You have about 1,200 of them certified. 30% gone. That is about 1/3 of this number. We are talking about 400 of them gone. You're left with about 800. Ghana, I started and I said this. If we keep thinking that praying alone will help us develop, we are jokers. Because even God will not come from heaven and do for you what you can do for yourself. But he will give you the thinking and the strength to do it. Without that, I'm sorry, but you're a fool. And that is why I'm going to end on this note by saying, successful societies don't only pray for their leaders to succeed, they hold them accountable as well. Successful societies don't only pray, hey, raditio, hey, raditio. After doing that, they hold their leaders to account. That is how they succeed. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. I know a lot of what I say, some people don't like, but stop saying it, I will not, because I have a conscience. These are my blunt thoughts shared with you this morning. Raw, hot, unedited, undiluted. God bless our homeland Ghana and make her great and strong.